Mateus and I are two agents here at Funkhauser, and we're putting together the group so that we're trying to organize this group so that if you come out to every meeting once a month for the entire year, you have a complete overview of real estate investing. So every month is a different topic. This month we're going to have Dain Hammond speaking on real estate development. But before we get into that, we'd like to just take a second to go around the room. We'll start over here. Actually, we'll start with Mateus and just say a little bit what you're trying to learn, your experience, and if you have any successes, feel free to brag about those two right now.
My name is Mateus. I'm here with Funkhauser. Been an agent for a while. I've enjoyed working with investors in my time here as an agent. Find the world fascinating and love how much depth there is to it and how much more you can learn. So always interested in learning more. I have a baby coming in December 9th, so I guess that's one of my successes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, I was interested in a flip recently, but decided that it wasn't the right time with the family stuff happening. So eager to do more of that in the future. But yeah, excited to learn.
Yeah, my name's Ian. I'm actually the business reporter over at the Daily News Record, but just learning about real estate and other things like this pretty frequently just to learn more. So
are you in it, or are you interested in getting started, or?
No, this is just for me to learn.
Okay, cool. Welcome.
Cool. Kevin Shufflett with Kingston Enterprises, own rental properties in the city and the county. Success is that I'm 5 months away from Army retirement. I'm in the Army also, so I'll be very happy when that happens.
There you go.
Nothing but real estate.
Very nice.
Matt and Kate Schmuff, we have a general contracting company that does remodeling, and we're about to close on our first rental property. It's a duplex in Harrisonburg.
Very nice. Very nice.
Chuck Williams, I do financial services over here at the Living Site Building, but dabble in real estate and single family homes mostly, so I'm just here to learn about other opportunities.
Cool.
Kim, and I just own a rental property here in town, and I don't know anything about anything, so I'm just here to listen and see what I can learn.
Cool. We'll get back with Isaac.
My name's Isaac. I bought my first property in August, and I'm house hacking it, so I live in one room, rent out all the others, and I'm just here to learn about anything and everything.
My name is Jordan. I work in kind of the site development field, but kind of like to learn and dabble in the rental real estate world as well. So just here to learn from Dain, see what he has to say.
I'm James. Just jumped into the real estate game earlier this year. Actually got closed on my first duplex on the 8th. That's about it. Just here to find more information.
Congrats. Is that Harrisonburg or?
Stanton.
Stanton. Very nice. Congrats.
Chandler Morris, aircraft detailer, and take college classes, and basically here to learn as much as I can about real estate, trying to get into it.
Luke Hart, house and rental properties, and flip properties, and just wanting to learn more.
Cool. So my name is Chase Louderbeck. I'm from Luray, Virginia. I've been in real estate for quite a while, but flipping houses the past 5 years. I'm also a realtor here at Funkhauser, and earlier this year, my brother and I formed an investment company that is geared towards mobile home parks. So we have one property on the portfolio now, but we're looking for others. So if you guys know of any opportunities, keep us in mind. Now we're just going to go over a couple of quick announcements. We're anticipating the next meeting being December 18th. We're trying to do essentially just like a casual holiday thing, maybe at a brewery or a small restaurant to grab some drinks and some food. So potentially we're doing Brothers Brewery, but if you guys have any suggestions, then we're open. We can maybe talk about that at the end after Dain speaks a little bit. And another thing we're working on that might be kind of cool is we have a flip going on right now, taking videos as we're going through it just to show the overall process. So after that's completed and the home is sold, I plan on posting those on the YouTube page, or not YouTube, Facebook group, so that you can see that as it progresses along. And then now I'm going to turn it over to Mateus with his October market report.
Yeah, so we saw things go slump a little bit in October. The median sales price is still 4% over October 2018, so that's good. We saw the new listings go down by 12% when you compare it to October of 2018. Median days on the market was 55% faster, so 14 days as compared to 33. The number for houses for sale was 111 compared to 120 last year. Overall, the market's still progressing strongly. So we have overall 1,136 home sales from January to the end of October, which is 1% more. There was 1,125 at that time in 2018. We're seeing the median sales price be about 3% increase over last year, so it was $214,900 at the end of October 2018. At the end of October 2019, $222,500. And then overall, the houses are selling faster still, so 18 days on the market compared to 22. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, things weren't. September was a little bit hotter of a month. It was a little bit slower in October, but still not bad. I mean, we're still progressing as one would expect. So we'll see how the winter months go. I've found that when there's a lot of snow, people don't want to go out and buy real estate. So we could see that might continue if we have a lot of snow. If it's a mild winter, then it might not slow down much at all. But certainly not as active as midsummer, spring. So yeah, so I'll actually invite Dain to come up. Dain is advisor to a lot of different developments. He's been a part of over 150 million in development, all the way from here, Rockingham County, to Stanton, to Richmond. Dain knows a lot about how to leverage tax benefits. So like if you have any questions about historical tax credits, the opportunity zones, he knows a lot about that. And I think he even had some solar tax credits. You've worked into deals in the past. You're doing the first opportunity zone in Harrisonburg now, so that's really cool. He's part of, you got Altitude, sorry.
Altitude, yeah.
Aloft is in the hotel. Altitude up and running, and that's a really big project. What was the other one?
A65 East.
A65 East. It's another big one in town. He's been around. He's gone through the past recession. And so he's got a lot of wisdom and experience, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you. This is Buddy. He helps me out when I'm nervous. So I'm Dain Hammond of Hammond Insurance Services and Asset Management. I'm going to stand on this side of the room because I write a lot. Well, I think. Probably wondering what the hell a insurance agent asset manager is doing. Talking about real estate development. And I don't blame me because I asked myself that same question. It's not easy to tackle this. I'm a social introvert, so I have to hype myself up to do this. And I've been struggling with, this is a big topic. What is development? Okay, so let's start with the definition, and then we could segue into a whole lot of different areas. So I've been struggling trying to figure out how to develop this conversation or shape it to try and give you the most information that you might be looking for. And a lot of people are coming from different experiences. So it's been tough to think about. I'm not an engineer. I don't have a Series 6 or 7 or whatever. I don't have a real estate license. I'm a contractor. I don't have a builder's license. I do have an insurance license, but I have no formal background or no education. I've never taken an urban planning class. So then I start stressing. I'm like, what the hell? What am I? Am I really a developer? And then that's when my mind starts getting all wacky. And this was last night, so I just opened a bottle of wine and said, I'll figure it out in the morning. And then so this morning, I was flipping through the news. I don't know if y'all saw, or if any of y'all are familiar with Jack Ma.
Alibaba?
Yeah. All right, so Alibaba started off kind of like the Chinese version of eBay, and now they do cloud computing, food delivery, they're into everything. This guy founded the company in 1999. I'm giving you this background. There's some relevancy. And so in 20 years, his company's worth $436 billion. It's $500 billion. The dude's transformed the Chinese economy through technology, through the marketplace. And last night, somewhere around 2 a.m., they opened an IPO. About 4:30, raised $13 billion in a couple hours, from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. I mean, the dude is, I've been a big fan. So they put a quote in last night, and he's like, I know nothing about technology. I know nothing about marketing. And I know nothing about this legal IPO stuff. I know how to make my customers happy. I know people, and I know how to make my employees happy. And then the light went on. I was like, shit, a developer isn't an engineer. He's not a builder. He's not a real estate agent. He's not the quarterback. He's the head coach, or she. I don't know anything about any aspect. I can't tell you building processes, but I can tell you call Ken Patterson. I can't tell you anything about site development, but I can say, hey, let's go have lunch with our bigs. I don't know that much about tax stuff, but let's go to talk to Nick, the PB mayors. You put the right people, the right team together. I'm an expert at nothing. So that made it easy. Now I'm thinking I don't have to teach you anything. All I'm going to do is share different experiences I've had. And I've been very blessed. I've had a lot of breadth of experience. I'll try and give you some guiding principles that have, upon reflection, looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's what made that helped my career, or that gave me some foundation. So that's the plan. I'll tell you a little bit more about what we are, what we do, give you a little bit of ideas. Try and respond to a couple of the questions I was fielded over the Survey Monkey. And I want it to be engaging. You're gonna hear stuff and you're like, that's bullshit, or something else. Tell me that, and refute me, debate, open up. I need that. That'll really help the conversation. And that's what I'm looking for. There's a point to the story. If you looked up our website to get any background on us, that was done about 5 years ago. And one of my clients called and said, my banker said, who the hell is this guy? He doesn't have a website. So I was like, shit. And I had an intern that worked for me at JMU. Luke knows him, Eric. So anyway, then he went on to the University of Amsterdam and to get his master's in finance. I don't know if you know anything about the history of banking. And I'm going to keep coming back to this word because this will make or break you in the development world, no matter what level you're trying to do. It's the biggest tool. If you don't know finance, learn it. If you don't know how banks work or interest rates or what bankers are looking for, learn it. Because if you can't finance a project, you can't get anywhere. That's how this all happens. So the best thing you can do if you're looking to get into real estate, figure out how money works. So, University of Amsterdam, the Dutch created banking. That's how a tiny little country became a global superpower, through banking. So this is kind of where my finance education started, by way of this intern that I had. And so anyway, I called Eric and said, can you make a website? I was like, yeah. I was like, all right, we gotta get some creative juices flowing. I'll be there this weekend. So I flew to Amsterdam. We posted up in a coffee shop in Amsterdam for a weekend. We made up a website so I could call the bank and say, hey, I got a website. So if you read that, it hasn't been updated in 5 years. We don't advertise. We're kind of a boutique shop. We don't look for customers. So if you looked on the website, it's outdated and doesn't really include everything we do. What we are, to give you a bird's eye overview, I started the company in 2000. We're in Harrisonburg, Stanton, Lexington, Richmond, and we should open an office first quarter in Charlottesville. We employ about 44 people across those locations. Divisions and development's one of them. One is insurance services. We do about $10 million a year in sales of insurance products. Another would be the development arm, and that's what I mentioned earlier. We've probably 150, we do about $7 million a year in development work. We've got a property management division. So it's not just development we can talk about. If you own rental property, you manage property. So there's other aspects that if you have some questions, I might be able to help. Currently, we have right at 80 million in assets under management that we take care of. Consulting. A lot of people would pay me for this, believe it or not. Banks sometimes will have me underwrite a project for them if they sub it out. They have asked me to step in and take over projects gone awry. I've had widows that come to me like, my husband just passed away, we own a bunch of real estate, I don't know the first thing to do. And so I'll give consulting, okay, let's start liquidating this, what can we manage, blah, blah, blah. So we have a consulting division, and all of these kind of created them. I'll go through the creation of all this. And we average maybe $250,000 a year in consulting fees. So in 20 years, we've kind of grown and split off into a lot of different segments. Of course, we're going to focus on the development side today. But we can touch on property management, consulting, wherever you want to go with it. I've made all kinds of notes, and I'm going to go in all kinds of different directions. I have ADD, so I'm going to bounce all over, so pull me back in if I get too off on a tangent. Where should we start on development? We had questions of, one was, how do you know if a property is good for development? There's one easy answer to that, is the price right? Anything can work if the price is right. So it's really, what is the cost? What is the true cost of the property? I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Stanton. As you come down Statler Boulevard, I guess, to Granville Avenue, like you're going to Wrights and through the underpass, the old penitentiary, all those beautiful homes and buildings. That was sold to a buddy of mine for $1. Everybody in town freaked out, like, what the hell did the city of Stanton do? This is, somebody got paid behind closed doors. And I'm like, no, that wasn't his cost of the property. And that's what he'd lash out and people would get up in his face. He's like, look, I had a $4 million asbestos removal job before I even could look at or think about doing anything. City of Stanton couldn't sell that property. The true cost of it, you had to overcome all that cost before it was anything. So the real cost of a property, you need to really look into. Whether that's asbestos removal, that's kind of obvious. The things that you don't know about rock. I can't tell you how many people come down to this area and they think, there's a piece of land, I've got this much in excavating cost, and they don't know what hard blue limestone is. It's not that. This shit will not break, and it is expensive. I have developed a 1 acre site with a $100,000 excavating budget and come out with $150,000 in just rock removal. That will kill you. Those are things you need to keep in mind. And I'll touch back on that. And that's kind of get into due diligence, and that's something I'm a a big believer in. So that's the answer to one question. How do you know if a property is good for development? Is it the right price? Bill Neff used to teach me, and one of his secrets was he would buy 2 shitty pieces of property. Boy, this is a big hill, it's too steep, nobody can do anything with it, and one's a big gully, big hole in the ground, so he'd buy both pieces, cut the hill, put it in the hole. Now he's got 2 great pieces of property. He was kind of a pioneer in Harrisonburg, moving hills around behind the wall. All this did not look like it does now. All right. How all this kind of got started. Now I'm bouncing back. I skipped the insurance and got into development. And there's a point behind this story. I was kind of a bum bouncing around. I was living overseas in the Virgin Islands. And this guy was on vacation down there. We got to know each other. I was hanging out, working down there. And at the end of it, we were having drinks and he was getting ready to leave. And he's like, okay, you're from Stanton, Virginia. So you're familiar with Harrisonburg? I'm like, yeah, I know Harrisonburg. This was 1999. And he owned a insurance, or he didn't own, he was the senior vice president of an insurance company, a national insurance company. And my family had been in insurance, and so he said, we need somebody in Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg is where it's at. That over the next couple of decades, that place is gonna boom. This was in 1999. I'd been living on the road in hotels literally for 4 years. And so I was like, okay, what the hell, I'll go home and give it a try. This guy seems pretty smart. And he said, I'll give you 40 grand, you set up shop, you sell $500,000 of our products. In 3 years, we forgive the loan. I'm like, okay, great. I'm gonna go back to the Valley, work for 3 years, sell it, and get out. And then I got here and I got married and had kids, and 20 years later, I'm still here. The point of that guy was right. I got really, really lucky coming into Harrisonburg investing in the early 2000s. Idiot kind of made money. It was just really good times. That's why I got so bad, because idiots were making money. And I was one of them starting off at the right time. So I came here, started an insurance business, and 3 lessons from that experience, looking back in reflection on where this came from. One was I was hanging out with smart people, or interesting people. And that's gonna flow back into your due diligence. I try and hang out with people that are smarter than me, or just interesting, or other experiences. It doesn't have to be, it can be wisdom or intelligence. I like to hang out with the builders because I learn a little bit from them. I like to hang out with engineers. I try and put myself in positions just like this one, where it's a collaboration of ideas and sharing. This is, I was telling him, I was like, dude, this was, I wish I did this back in 1999 or 2000. Hang out with smart people, and put yourselves around other people that you can widen your circle of thought. My mentor used to preach that to me all the time. Widen your circles of thought. And that flows back into the due diligence as well. The second thing I learned from that was I never could have started my business without that startup capital. And that goes back to finance, other people's money. I'm gonna keep coming back to finance. That's really how things get going. If you have enough money, if you have enough money, then you're gonna wanna do bigger and you're gonna wanna finance more. So back to finance, learn finance. The other lesson I got out of that was location, location, location. I know it's cliche, but he was right. He picked Harrisonburg. He was a really smart dude with new trends and things that were happening. And he was like, go to Harrisonburg. And I was like, okay. And I hadn't been here in a long time. And when I left Harrisonburg, it was a dying town. 92, 91. Got here in 99 and boom, it just exploded. That's what I took out of that, and that's how I started this business. And so fast forwarding, I'm in insurance, representing an elderly lady. Her husband had just left, and so she had literally a mile of beachfront property on the Chesapeake Bay outside of Annapolis. It was a really nice piece of land. And so she was liquidating that, and her attorney and her accountant were like, you need to do a 1031 tax exchange, avoid the capital gains. So let's start looking at this. We're gonna have a clock started. We've got a contract on it. We're gonna close in 90 days. And I'm there for the insurance. And the lady, so we had another follow-up meeting. She brought in real estate agents and developers and people trying to sell to her. She was just like, I don't trust any one of these bastards. She was like, can you do it? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Literally, that's how it happened. I walked out of there and I was like, what's a 1031? I really had no idea what I was doing. And it was just a level of trust that this lady put in me in my judgment. And it goes back, I didn't need to know all this, but I needed to find a real estate agent that I could trust, that knew what he was doing. I needed to put my team around me. And that's really how I got started, was just blind luck that some crazy old lady would put me in charge. I think it was 6 or 7 million for my first project. And on a clock, like you gotta figure all this out in 6 months and then close in another 90 days after that thing. So that's how I got started on the development side. As that grew bigger, we figured out, we started getting the board, the governor, the CPAs and the attorneys came in and like, oh, hey, my client's going through the same thing. They're selling their farm out in the county. They got to do a 1031. Can you help me? Sure. So by accident, this career started while I was doing the insurance. And then I've been able to run them simultaneously somehow. And then as that side grew, the development side, that we finally got enough scale that we were like, well, hell, let's just manage our own property. So we started the property management side of it. Typically I say sub stuff out, but when you get enough scale, then you can start to keep some of those costs in-house. Luke worked with me, turning apartments, how long ago was it? Shit, 9, 10 years ago? Yeah. It's been a while. So now we manage, I don't manage property for anybody else. I don't have a real estate license. I can only manage things that I have some ownership in. So we're not really a property management company. That's just an ancillary service we provide back to our customers. The other side was the consulting. Finally, I got enough good people on me that, hey, we'll run with the project management. You can get people will pay you for this stuff, and you don't have to do it. So those are the divisions. We're actually opening an event division. Anyway, that's the 5 divisions now of what we do. So that's what we do. That's how we got started. Lay down, buddy.
I have some questions about due diligence.
Yeah.
What all do you, how long of a time do you typically put a due diligence period, like a start period? Does it depend on the project? What are your basic checklists that you need to have done for sure?
Okay. I'm going to contradict myself here. I am a huge believer in one guy that I work for. He was the CEO of Litton Industries, Michael Brown. Biggest pain in my ass ever, but he had big pockets. And he would hammer me on my due diligence. He never wanted a surprise. It is paramount. You can't do enough, and I'm going to get into some things that you should look for. But at the same time, you've got to be doing that due diligence now. You need to be doing your background research on the market, things like this, so you have an understanding of what goes on, because you have to act really quickly, and you're not going to have a whole lot of time to do your due diligence or understand the market trends or traffic flows. There's a lot of things you can do now, creating knowledge of the current environment. So a lot of that's, you're always doing your due diligence. Scope of the deal, I've seen feasibility studies of up to 180 days or a year if it has to go through rezoning or stuff. But it depends on the scope for your due diligence period. If I'm selling a $300,000 property, I'm not gonna tie it up for 180 days, it's crazy, maybe 60 days. If I'm doing a $25 million project, you know, I'm looking at the 180 to a year, because I got a lot of steps to go through. On the due diligence, back to you can't do enough. This guy, Mike Brown, would hammer me. Are there utilities there? Yeah, Mike, they're on the street. No, where are the utilities? They're on the street, don't worry about it. Dane, I want to know where they are, I want to know the water flow, and I want to make sure we have connectivity. And I'm like, son of a bitch. It seems like details that I shouldn't have to go through. I've been burned one time, and I watched another good friend get burned a second time. This is illegal now, and I'm not gonna say who in town did it to me, but I bought a large parcel of land on a corner. Water is on the street, right? And then, so yeah, water's at the site. This is the parcel I bought right here. This is the road, this is the water line, if you can imagine all that. The guy that had it before me, he did what's called a spike strip. They're illegal now, you can't create them anymore. He carved out a 6-foot piece of land that ran alongside of my property that I just bought. And if I ever wanted that water to cross that 6-foot strip of land, it cost me 90 grand.
Could you get an easement?
Yeah, if he wanted to give it to me. It was his property. I couldn't force that easement on him.
Yeah.
I could get an easement for 90 grand, but he just sold me the property instead. A lot of developers, a lot of old farmers here would do that. They'll do a spike strip, so wherever the utilities are on that road, if you want to get it around, you got a cost of either running way down and around that spike strip or buying that piece of land off of them. Look for that stuff. If you see a weird little carving of land around the side of yours, start paying attention. So that's what I'm talking about. Really dig down. It's not, is there water at the site? Yeah, water's at the site. Can I get water onto my site? I got burned. Project worked out, but it was an extra 90 grand. Another one, dude built a hotel. Did all this feasibility study work, done it for a year, bought the land, design. I can't remember, but he was probably close to $1 million into it. And for the site plan, they don't have the water flow to push a sprinkler system. They had water at the site, but it wasn't enough for their intended use. Rockingham County and the city of Harrisonburg have a problem with water flow. They're solving a lot of it. They solved it east of town. We actually donated some land for them to put a huge pipe around it, get more pressure. North of town, there's issues. So that's part of your due diligence. Not, is there water at the site? Do I have enough water to build what I want? And can I get it to where I need it? He would hound me on details, trends. So if we did a subdivision. All right, so what's the price point we're trying to sell? We're trying to sell a $200,000 house. All right, so $200,000 house. This is all math backing up. Takes 20% down payment, so $160,000. That's going to create this mortgage. A mortgage should only be 30% of the gross after income. So you back up and $200,000 house, you have to make $85,000 in the household. Boom. That's your target demographic. People making $75,000 to $95,000. Does that make sense? It's all a math equation, just back up. So now I had to go and find out who employed people. Where was that workforce pay here in Harrisonburg? Like, are you fucking kidding me? So I had to do all these steps. Who were the biggest employers? That was that JMU? Was that Centera? Was it the supply company on the south end of town? Who was it employing those people? What were those companies doing? Where was that company's balance sheet? What were their projections for the next year? That's the type of due diligence you do. Maybe not on buying a single family home, but when I'm looking at asking somebody for $30 million, that's the shit that they get into. I mean, they get really deep into it. And that's the stuff you do behind the scenes before you have to buy that property. You know what's going on in town. You know that they're widening this road or traffic flows are changing. So the due diligence is going on all the time, and I actually made a list of other things. Zoning, I mean, that's an obvious one. Is it zoned correctly? One thing a lot of people fail to do is even look at the comp plan, start with a comprehensive plan. That's your starting point. Because it might not be zoned that, but it might be in the comp plan to be that type of property. So that's your starting point anytime you're looking at a piece of property. Demand generators. not only if we were doing on the residential side, we were trying, the demand generator is people buying that house that live in that demographic. If I'm doing a retail thing, what are the demand generators? What's the traffic flow? I've looked to do a hotel in a certain part, and that's what they ask me for. What's the demand generator? What's pushing people there? Is it a hospital? A hospital is a demand generator. The JMU is a demand generator because there's people visiting that. Find out what those are, and then dig into where is that company going? Are they looking to expand? A lot of it's simple, quick Google research. You can find a lot of information just pulling up articles real quickly. Rock, I've talked about that. Rock's huge. Avoid it. Things to look at real quick. Bunch of cedar trees, scrub brush, that's rock. Ask any country boy around here if you see a hillside covered in cedars and no hard trees, no big oaks. It's all scrub brush is rock. Go beyond that, of course. Beyond a piece of land, do the test holes. Don't hire an excavator that doesn't give a shit what happens to you afterwards to do the test holes. They might do them here, here, and here when you know you're building the building here, when you know you have the water and sewer line here. Lay out what you're going to build and do the test holes where you're going to be digging. I've seen a lot of guys like, I did 12 test holes. You did 12 test holes on the parking lot. We don't need to dig in the parking lot. We need to build where the house is or where the utility is. Be really specific and thorough in your due diligence, but have as much of it done as you can to make quick decisions.
So that would be like with it after engineering kind of thing, like you have engineering site plan drawn up, and then from there you do the test holes to know where the
Yeah. Or that's a big expense to overcome to do a site plan.
yeah.
But you're going to have a general idea where this is going to go.
Okay.
There's going to be natural things to it, setbacks,
Right.
where water flows, whatever. But yeah, so general ideas where you can redevelop it.
So then you put all that money into the engineering work if you know it's gonna be right.
That's a big cost to do up front. You can learn a little bit hanging out with engineers. I said, you know that roads can't be at a more than 5% grade. And little things you pick up, and so you know that, parking lots. Little things, you can do the site plan yourself, just with a little bit of creativity. Site plan's a big expense to go through to answer everything, but it's definitely dependent upon the scope again. Due diligence, if I can tell you things to avoid, and I'm going to refute what you said about the aluminum wiring. My opinion as an insurance agent, if you've got aluminum wiring, go ahead and put that in your cost to rewire. Insurance companies are getting off of it as fast as they can, and you're going to be paying 3 to 4 times the cost with less coverage if you have aluminum wiring. That, and these are things I'm stating from an insurance standpoint, because I do a lot of that. Floodplains, unless you budget in ridiculously high increases, do not buy anything in a flood zone. Always goes back to the price is right, but you be sure to bake in that cost. Bake in the cost of rewiring, in my opinion, if it's aluminum. Not because, I agree with you, that's the only problem with it, but insurance companies don't care. And they know some homemakers are going to try and do it themselves.
Yeah.
So they're freaked out about that. Flood insurance, the National Flood Insurance Program is bankrupt. We got a 35% increase on a building last year, and our predictions are 50% every year for the next 5 years, and they don't even know if they can catch up their reserves by that time. And flood insurance isn't you can buy it from Lloyd's and London and stuff, but basically it's governed by the government, is created because nobody can make money on it, and so you got a government program, but it's a big cost. So if it's in a floodplain, if it's close to a floodplain, because they rewrite it every so often, I would say stay away from it, because you don't know what those costs are going to be.
Which floodplain are you talking about? 100 year, 500?
100 year, 500 I won't worry about.
Okay.
100 year, I have a building, and this is where mistakes, a huge mistake I made. I did a job in Stanton. I'm an insurance agent. I should have looked and seen if it was in a floodplain. I didn't know it till I got to the closing table. I looked at it on a map and the floodplain wasn't there. It catches the 100 year catches 5 feet of the front of my building. I've got nothing in the basement. It's an old basement. I have to carry the most you can buy is $500,000, so the bank requires you the most. I've got a $50,000 deductible with a $500,000 of coverage, and it doesn't protect anything. The only thing that's in the floodplain is the basement, and basements are excluded from flood insurance. Now, I'm telling you how ridiculous this is. I pay $9 grand a year. Put that into your operating cost. That puts a dent into your cash flow. And I was an insurance agent and I didn't even catch it. I just looked at a map. I was like, no, the building's not in. Nope, 5 feet of the foundation's in it. Because they take the survey from underground, or they take, not the survey from underground, but they take the lowest elevation of the house as where you hit the floodplain. It's another crazy story. We didn't even know it had a basement. The city didn't know, but when we opened it up, we found out we had a basement, and so that's dropping into the flood zones. If you're close, stay away from it. It drives me insane. Sorry.
I can just add one thing quick too. It's
Yeah.
like Virginia's a buyer viewer state, so if that's one of the things that a buyer needs to do due diligence on, that's certainly something an agent would help you try to look up or suggest to talk to an insurance agent about it. But that's not something that the seller, for example, has to disclose.
But you couldn't just fill it with cement. You can just fill in the basement.
I guess I could, but I don't want to lose that square footage. I haven't even thought about that.
Because that's I wasn't sure if maybe there was, if once it has a basement, then they have that on the books and they're saying, well, and then you gotta go through more hoops just to fill it in.
Yeah, it'd be expensive too to fill it in. I don't know how much that would be, but yeah, I guess I could raise the basement somehow. That's not a bad idea. That's where I store all my stuff though now. But yeah, that could
And
be, yeah, I
there's
like
a cost reward, and if if you do end up wanting to do it, and it's a couple grand, but it's, you have to jump through hoops for weeks to do it, it's not
Yeah, I
worth
don't know how that would work, but I like that idea.
Find the hill, buy it.
Put it in the basement.
The worst part, we were so freaking happy. It was, we found out we were renovating this big warehouse, and so an old floor was put, we pulled up the floor accidentally, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like 3,500 square feet of basement with 10-foot ceilings. It looked like it burned in the 20s, and they pushed it in, put a new floor over it, and they didn't keep records. The seller didn't know it had a basement. The city didn't know it had a basement. And so at first we're like, hell yeah, and then it came up that flood insurance.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So those are a couple of the questions that I had. Some were case studies. Do you want me to walk through projects that I've done?
Yeah. Maybe putting together teams too, because it sounds like, a lot of your stuff, you're saying there's successes in the team, so how you're finding the people and putting them in the right place might be helpful too.
Hang out with smart people. Find out who the players are. You're gonna hear. I mean, everybody in town knows Ed Blackwell is one of the good civil engineers. If you can afford him or want him. But then you get to the Builders Association and you start hearing about these guys that have one-off shops that are really good. And those are the guys that I like to look for. Good skill, but not the huge overhead in marketing. Or ask other people. I'm big on finding mentors. When I got to town, I went to who I thought were the best developers in town, and this is something that goes back to, I got to town, I picked out half a dozen people, and I'm a true believer people are good by nature, and they like to help other people, and I simply went up to them and said, I'm new in town, I don't know what I'm doing. You mind helping me out, teaching me some? Granted, they also knew that I just got $6 million to spend, so most of these guys were they were like buzzards around me, so I did have that leverage. But it's Bruce Forbes, Bill Neff, Ken Klein, those guys were my mentors. And those, hey, who do you use? And you develop those mentorships, and then that's the people you call, hey, who's the best civil engineer that can do this, or who's the builder that's experienced in that. So that's how I put my team together.
Do you talk about altitude? Case study, or is there a better one?
Yes and no. Altitude, if you know what it is, it's that was a big project. that was probably the largest single project. That's coming in at 34, 35 million. It's 428 apartments. I bought the land, didn't know what we were gonna do with it, tried to develop it over time. Came up with a concept, designed the building, and then sold it, got it rezoned, and then I sold. I'm just briefing over this because I'll get to it. Then I sold it to a group, and they took over the project from construction and actually fired me. Because they said, our bank said you're not big enough. I guess I looked at my 5-year-old website. They said you're not big enough to manage this size of a project. We need a regional carrier. So the regional carrier came in and managed the project, and then I was just hired back in December. The project had a lot of problems, so we're fixing problems there. We're pretty much through that. We are finishing apartments now for last August move-in.
Yeah, no, I heard about that. There was like some electrical stuff too.
Oh shit, there's all kinds of problems. But we're fixing it. So I don't want to talk too much about it. I got hired to put this back on course, and we're almost there. This gives a lesson, and I'm not beating up on these guys because I screw up all the time. I remember, ironically, this was 2017, I was begging with them because I was still consulting on the job. I was like, let's start this job now. I was like, what if 2018 is the wettest year on record and we can't get equipment in for 3 months? And I'll be damned if 2018 wasn't the wettest year in 100 years in Virginia. It was ridiculous. And that was just they looked at it, so you get to a finished product cost of $30 million, that's a lot of interest, so they don't want it, and in student housing, you start in August. And so they don't want to finish 4 months ahead of time and carry $30 million of product with no revenue, so they try and time it right down to the wire. And these guys were brilliant, big hotel developers, so they're smarter than me in some things, but I err on the side of caution of, I know how bad it is if you miss a deadline in student housing, then you can miss a whole year, and now you're looking at 12 months of sitting empty. So anyway, that was one of the big problems. 2018 was the wettest year on record, and it was just crazy irony because I remember screaming that at them, and damn if it didn't come true. So I'm not going to talk about altitude too much because we're still working through some issues there.
What do you think about the R8? Do you think the what is it, high density new zoning? And I know Dick was pretty
The urban development zone.
Yeah, well, with the they even had to work with the fire department just to get the ladders up to the second story, if I remember correctly, because of how close the houses can be now. You know, do you?
Yes.
Nobody's signed up for it yet. I know it's still 8-9 months around, but
Yeah, it's an issue. When we built 865, that's the highest residential building in the Central Valley. This goes to another, and this is where I'm segueing, max out whatever zoning or classification you're in. So as far as height is concerned, you can only go up to 88 feet, and then it turns into high rise and everything, building codes change. So there's no point to build to 89 feet because your whole 89 feet has the cost that isn't supported by. So yes, we built the highest one, and we maxed out the city of Harrisonburg's ladder, and we had to justify that through revenue for them to buy a taller ladder truck. They've got a mutual response with the county, so the city will hit into the county. They're required to. It's an agreement for their funding. So if the county comes to you and says, oh, we're gonna need a bigger ladder truck, and you say, bullshit, it's close to the city, you can access it with this. Don't let them bully you on that stuff. I'm telling you, the city and county will rape you as well. Another big mistake on your due diligence, building altitude. Here's something we did not count on, and they didn't disclose to us. Anytime you have a government entity, flood insurance, stuff like that, they can just all arbitrarily oh, this is the price. To have a school bus or the JMU bus pick up our students, whether we have 50 people living there or we have 400, costs 120 grand a year. At one point it was 50 or 60 grand, and then the next thing we know, oh no, we're losing money, so we're gonna double our prices. And it's not a free market where that's just, well, shit, the city's losing money, you gotta pay it. So that's another part of, in your due diligence, when you're putting in your numbers, throw in high variables for any government controlled cost that could come your way. Real estate taxes.
Yeah.
If you're buying in the city of Harrisonburg budget a 40% increase, we're gonna have to pay for a high school. Trust me, what I really think is gonna come down the other way financially, it's gonna work out, and there was a big think tank put together on this, and on one property, that's gonna cost me 40 grand a year. Those are things that government controlled costs, budget for them to just bake that into your numbers. Real estate taxes, flood insurance, certain types of utilities, tap fees. They are always jacking that stuff up. We just paid altitude, we paid $150,000 to tap into the water line. 150 grand to tap into the water line. When we started the project 3 years ago, it was like 60, 75. Then 2 or 3 years later, it's twice.
What is it for just a single, like, family home? Is it 15?
14. It might be up to 15. It was 14 a few months ago, I think, or last year.
It was one single family?
Uh-huh.
It was 7,000 this summer.
But water and sewer, right? You were saying water sewer.
Yeah, total tap fee.
It's probably around.
I don't know if it's any different or not.
For City of Harrisonburg?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
County's
thinking
a lot
county.
It's around 10.
Yeah, county's a lot cheaper.
Somewhere in that area.
Yeah, I don't know, it's on Google. Back to, I don't know much about anything, but I can hire somebody to figure that out.
It's 14 today, tomorrow it's 15.
We budget, we put in our pro forma as 14, so maybe we're looking at doubling it, but that number sticks out in my mind. So I think on our current pro formas, we're using the $14,000 budget for tap fees. Okay, one thing that I do have a little bit of experience that he mentioned was tax credit projects. I don't want to get back to finance as well, but these are things, there wasn't much interest on the Survey Monkey, but I'm telling you, if you ignore this stuff, you're missing a golden opportunity. I'll run you through a project that we just finished, so I have pretty good numbers. And it's unbelievable what you can do. One of my projects right now, I've got one intern from VCU. All they do is try and overlay maps of different tax credit zones. And at any place I can find 2, I'm really looking. If I can find 3, man, I'm digging in. And so what I mean, so the downtown standard, it lied in the historical tax credit area and the enterprise zone grant. And then you can freeze your real estate taxes, that's small in the scope of things. The numbers on that, I put in $170,000. The building cost $260,000. We came out about, call it $270 with closing costs. We spent $900,000 to renovate this. So our total cost in was about $1,170,000. And I've got $170,000 in cash.
Is this the one on Beverly Street?
Yeah, 5 East Beverly.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Out of that 900, we had roughly, and I'm using round numbers, $750,000 that were tax credit eligible. So off of that, I got 45% of that in tax credits. So 100,000. Let me clean this up. Put in 170,000. That was my cash in. In tax credits, I got out 337. The enterprise zone grant is, you have to invest 100,000, and then for every dollar after 100,000 is 20 cents on the dollar back in cash. And you can stack it on top of the 45%. You max out at 100,000. So 600,000 is the magic number. That's kind of the project that I was looking for when I say max something out. The ideal situation would have been if this cost was 600,000, because the enterprise zone grant stops after that. But the honey hole would have been 600,000. This building was perfect because it was already demolished on the inside, and so there wasn't much you had to save. All I had to do really was the veneer. So it was great that it was dilapidated, because otherwise then I've got to save this stairwell or this transom, or I've got to keep this wall here. And it really screws with your ability to what you can do. If you're looking at historical tax credit, if you can find the worst building on the inside with a veneer, perfect. All right, so we basically doubled our money in tax credits. Maxed out the enterprise zone grant, so I got another 100 grand back out of it. Oh yeah, I paid myself 50 grand out of it, out of the money that I borrowed. And I got 45% tax credits on the 50 grand that I borrowed to pay myself. And then I got another 20% of that back in cash on the money I paid myself that I borrowed, that I got 45% tax credits on. I don't know if you're starting to see how this stacks up. And I really didn't even push it. I could probably went to a 10, 15% management fee, but I try not to push it. You can take advantage of these programs, it's crazy. The roof had caved in, so I needed to put up new roof supports and put a new roof on that. And then I said, well, let's put solar on top of that. So the roof, I got 45% historical tax credits. I got 20% in enterprise zone grants on it, 65%. I got 30% for the solar. So I got all of that stuff for 5 cents on the dollar. The government, your tax dollars paid for the rest of it, actually, to be quite honest. I pay enough in taxes. If you can find a property that is in two of these zones, I would take advantage of it. So before the downstairs rent, the office that you see on the first floor of that rent is triple net and pays for the mortgage on the whole building. We got the second floor for free, and we made a shit pile of money just doing the project.
How many units?
Just one. It's one big, huge event center upstairs.
Oh, okay.
That was a honey hole for us. We've had a lot of bad ones. I'm just telling you about the good ones. The bad ones are the ones you've seen my sign on for the last 10 years and nothing's happened. There's a few of those around town. Another situation that you talked about, opportunity zone, we're doing this downtown Harrisonburg, I think it's 48 to 52 East Market. Support Square, the street that's been closed down, that block there. One of the middle buildings, the one next to the old Rockingham Heritage National Bank. This is a historical tax credit renovation, so I'm looking for 45% of the tax credits back, and it's an opportunity zone. So if you're a developer and you're investing other people's money, this is cool. Or if you're in a situation, if you're familiar with the 1031 tax exchange, so you sell your rental house and you've depreciated over the years and you got this big tax bill. So 1031 is the tax language that you would reinvest that money in similar properties. That's what a lot of y'all do probably when you flip these houses, especially if you're facing short-term capital gains. You can do a 1031 and reinvest it and not pay taxes. Well, there's a lot of calling for, there's another theory out there, and there's different ways we see this going, but this is brand new. It's called opportunity zone. And what it's for is any capital gains. If you've got a client that has a ton of capital gains coming down that needs something to do with it, you can look into these opportunity zones. I sold a piece of a company and I had some substantial gains. So bought this property roughly for $500,000. So what I did, so I put $500,000 into it cash. And what this opportunity zone does is the capital gains I had to pay on that $500,000, and it wasn't from real estate. This is where it opens it up. It can be stock, it can be anything that appreciates that you pay capital gains on. You reinvest those capital gains into an opportunity zone fund. And I don't have to pay the capital gains on that this year. It delays it 7 years, and then you get a step up of 15%. So you basically delay that tax liability for 7 years. So I was roughly looking at a $100,000 tax bill I could either send to the government or I could reinvest it and then knock off 15% of that bill 7 years later. And then in 2 years I can borrow that $500,000 that I put into it out, and so I had that money back again. I don't have to leave it there for that full 7 years. And this is where it gets really nice. After 10 years in the opportunity zone, you are tax-free. any capital gains you make, your basis resets, after 10 years, your basis resets to your sales price.
Just keep.
Yeah, no tax liability whatsoever. And if one thing I'm quite sure of, taxes are gonna go up. Whether the other party gets into the house or if the current administration stays, either way, with the way our debt is, our tax rates are gonna have to increase. So these tax incentivized programs, I think, are gonna become even more and more important to avoid.
Do you think they'll become rarer too? Do you think, as they
Yes.
say, we need more revenue, that they'll just start scrapping them?
That's where I was going. So the enterprise zone is similar to the opportunity zone. Enterprise, and there's some debate of whether both programs will last, because they're both, opportunity zone is real brand new. So there's theories that after a few years, they're gonna see which one works best and get rid of the other one. Your grandfather ain't once you invest. But yeah, and there are zones, so there is a finite number of properties available there. So it just was published in February. If anybody wants to shoot me an email, I'll send you the brochure. Or I've done speeches on this before for other organizations. I've got a PowerPoint and stuff with Brian Shaw all about that if you are interested. A bunch of Harrisonburg parts that you won't think are in the opportunity zone. Or in the opportunity zone. It's funny, I turned on the news Sunday morning and Brett and I can't remember the CNN correspondent, she does a news special on Sunday morning. And it was all about how the opportunity zone is a farce. And it was designated to help poor communities. And they're finding that a lot of these things, I mean, this is all brand new breaking stuff. And they're finding a lot of these aren't in poor areas. I'm thinking, I bought on Court Square. I don't know if that's the most economically depressed area. She might be onto something. But in the meantime, I'm taking advantage of it. But it runs all down through South Harrisonburg, up north into Rockingham County. Hell, there's turkey farms that are in opportunity zones. If you don't ignore, I guess my advice is there wasn't much interest in these things from the survey, but don't ignore them because they're methods to do really well. If you're willing, there's some paperwork to it, but it's really not that hard.
Don't you have to create a new fund and stuff too, or a new business that's just towards opportunity zones, or?
Yep, and that's a one-page thing.
Okay.
Everybody has this middle block, oh shit, I gotta do paperwork from the government. I was amazed too, because I was willing to pay my attorney, and he calls me and he's pretty good friends, like, dude, you gotta fill out a box on a form. You want me to do that and send you a bill, or I think you can handle this one? Like, yeah. A lot of times it's just this, everybody's like, oh God, I don't want to deal with the government. But sometimes it's really easy and you can walk yourself through it. Or you can YouTube I've YouTubed how to fill out a historical tax credit application. Really, that's my kids have taught me that. Dad, you can do anything you want, it's on YouTube. They're right.
Is there a price point that you see, where you're hitting the law of diminishing returns, and like $100,000 property probably not worth the paperwork at the time for this, or is it 500? What generally?
No, you have to double your basis typically to qualify.
Oh.
So whatever you buy, you're gonna have to put that much into it.
Okay.
But your developer fee cost counts towards that. So if I bought a $100,000 house and I was gonna put 80 grand into it, I was like, shit, I can't quite get there. Pay yourself a $20,000 developer fee, and now you're at 100,000. A lot of people make that gap up with those things. There's all kinds of things you can bake in.
You got to do it within a certain period of time, though, right?
Depends which part are you talking about.
Like if you want to, like you said, if you want to invest, you said you have to put X amount of dollars into your house before you can.
Oh, before you qualify for this? No, you could do it at any time. If I bought that place in Stan, I could have all of a sudden filed for it 3 years later and said, hey, I want to do this project.
Okay.
Opportunity zone, I don't know if there's a time limit, but 1031, the tax exchanges, those you do have a time limit.
Yeah.
Once you liquidate what you had, I think it's 90 days to identify and then 180 to close.
Something like that.
Do you have to wait a year for those though? Or like if you're flipping a house now, you're gonna be done and sold in 60 days, can you 1031 those, you can do
It's
those?
gonna be short-term capital gains as well.
Okay.
Yep. Going back to finance, I don't know if this is right, but somebody really should Google this. This came up a couple months ago. I've got some investors, and some of these people are crazy. They're restaurant owners, good buddies of mine, and they always have these crazy ideas, and they're throwing them at me, and I poo-pooed on this one. And he was like, I'm serious, man, I'm gonna have him call you. So this mortgage broker called me and pitched this to me, and I'll be damned, is that true? And if you're looking at getting into real estate and you don't own a house, this is one thing I would do, if this is true. You can get a VHTA mortgage on a quadplex. Do y'all know about this?
I know about VC, I've never had anybody
You
buy it.
can do it on a quadplex even if you live in one unit.
Yeah, that is true, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And do a tier 3K where they wrap in the renovations.
If I didn't have kids right now, I would jump all over that. If I could get 30-year money at mortgage rates for 4% on 3 rental properties, holy cow.
You only have to live there for what, 1 year?
You only do, yeah, that's what you're doing, 1 year. And you don't even have to live there.
You
You
can
can put your utility bills in your name, show up there a couple times. Trust me, I did not know that. If you don't own a house, if I didn't have kids, and I've already moved around a lot, but so I can't do this again, but that is one thing I would definitely jump on. Or if you think you could, anyway, if you could do it, if you learn how to take advantage of financing, it's amazing what you can do, the products that are out there. When you're going to the banker, and when I say know how banking works, let's say you're really tight on your cash and you're trying to afford this project and there's a 1 point fee and you got a $500,000 job, so that's $5,000 and you're tight on cash, tell your banker, hey, bake that into the spread. Raise my interest rates a 1/16 of a point over 10 years, they're still gonna make their money, they're happy with that. Cuts down $5,000 out of your cash flow that was gonna come out. Learn how the Starbucks on Port Republic Road, that's an example of everything going to hell in 2008 and why it should have. We did one, and I'm not kidding, the last week before Lehman Brothers went down, we closed a loan with them on that shopping center. $3.5 million, I can't remember what it was. We borrowed 120% of cost. We took out more money than we put into this project. Interest only for 5 years, the next 5 years, 30-year amortization, and non-recourse, meaning they had no recourse. If I said, you know what, I'm tired of this and walk away, I could, and they had no recourse. That's why the banks collapsed. They were doing crazy loans. That come back. They're starting to do some really weird things out there, and those can make or break a project. For the longest time, since 2008, you haven't been able to do much for the last 10 years, but now those products are starting to roll back in, and bankers are getting a little loose. Learn how banks work, learn how to finance a project. That matters everything. If I go to a bank and, okay, you need $50,000 down on this $250,000 project. Okay, well, I'm paying myself a management fee or project management fee. Can I count that as equity? Yeah, sure. That's equity. That's part of your equity. You're doing the construction yourself. Your normal profit, well, I think you guys make 25-30% from my bills, but 11% or whatever on an AIA contract. You can say, hey, I'm doing this myself and I'm gonna retain my fee as equity in the project. But if you don't have any money, you can't do anything. So figure out how to get to other people's money through creative financing.
Do you think banks are, when you said they're kind of starting to do strange things, do you think that's as a result of, because I know that a few people I've spoken with have said that like rising labor costs, rising material costs are a problem. The banks are seeing that and saying, okay, well, it will suit us. Less people are willing to invest because on their end, their costs are going up. So we need to do something on that. Or do you think it's just them saying, fuck it, that was over a decade ago, let's try again?
But agreed on both cases. First instance, they still got a lot of money to make money, so they have to get a little looser and it's getting more difficult. That's why there's a shortage of housing here and nobody's building still.
Yeah.
I can't get the profit margins for it to make sense to a small single family home. I know I could sell them, I just can't build them to make any money.
Exactly, yeah, I mean with the sidewalks, with all the...
Yep. Scott Rogers and I started getting a debate about that the other day. He thought landowner, and I think the world of Scott Rogers, if I'm gonna hire a real estate agent to sell my subdivision, I'd hire that kid. I really respect him. But we were debating on, it is a phenomenon right now in Rockingham County. We have crazy demand, homes are selling like hotcakes, the supply is the lowest it's been in forever, but nobody's building.
Yeah.
He said everybody has too high expectations because developers like me pay such a premium for student housing. I'm like, no, I got land that I'll sell. My theory is, going back to math, I can't build a single family house for under, let's say, 170,000. I'm using round numbers here, but that average wage here backs up to, they can only afford a $190,000 house. And that $20,000 profit ain't worth it, the risk. I still have the taste of 2008 in my mouth.
Yeah, because that's what I understood, and that's sort of where I understood the R8 came from. You know, if you could just take a plot and fit 4 houses, where it used to, you'd only be able to fit 1, maybe you can fit 4. But still, I mean, it seems like that math that you're describing, even with the R8, just still isn't there.
Yeah, and the difference, Scott's take was, house, and I'm just showing you, and a lot of him was good, and he was saying, costs have risen 4%, and labor wages have raised 3%, so that's not it, it's just people are expecting too much. My thought is, we used to make a ton of money building houses. That margin has shifted, not just because of the cost of homes have went up along with wages.
Mm-hmm.
When we used to make 25%, our costs have went up of materials, subcontractors, labor's your cost of everything, will drop half your cost. Labor is outrageous right now. This margin has gotten too thin for anybody to invest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there's no homes.
And your land cost is higher too, right, just to even get
Your
it.
development costs, stormwater fees, the regulations they put you under,
Yeah, the sidewalks and everything.
sidewalks.
I do think, look, as a GC, subcontractors are more expensive. And I think, like, when we had the recession, a lot of people just got out of construction, like, to something safer. We had the hardest time getting decent subs to stay on jobs.
Just when you show up, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, we've got good people, but they're in such high demand
Yeah.
because, all the other good contractors in town want them as well.
Yep.
So we have to have like 3-4 on rotation, and whoever can fit into the schedule we use, and sometimes you're up creek.
Yeah, and they know it, and they can bump up their price, hey, you need me there, because you can't find anybody else. And the labor, there's a lot of us that are sitting on the sideline with cash, waiting for the next recession, and for labor to get back in line, because it's unsustainable. It's difficult to make a profit now, with the cost of labor where it is.
For the 170, just to build
That
that
was
house,
just a number.
just a rough idea, like, what do you think with labor material just to build a single family house would be running you per square foot right now? If he's got something very simple, builder grade.
That's a big question. 2-story, 1-story, a lot of rock finishes, but I could we built altitude, they tried to build altitude for $78 a foot. That's 500,000 square feet. To do a single family house, I think you can do 110 a foot of builder's grade. I don't know, you probably know better than that. What do you think?
We've tried looking into it because we've had some other people that like have had interest in doing spec houses on some of these lots that are in town.
All right.
By the time we get one of these lots, like quarter acre or whatever at 65,000, and then you pay city's water and hookup, you're almost 80,000 into it before you even put a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nuts on our part, and then coupled with it, we need to make our money.
Right.
We need to go mark it up 30%, and your subcontractors are more expensive.
Uh-huh.
Trying to retain good subs for stuff. So unless somebody's willing to like stretch a project out really long, and we can just wait until cheap people are available, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It doesn't help with trade wars.
Yeah.
Materials all over the place. Lock into your pricing.
If you were being the GC yourself, I was thinking probably like, 100 if it's super low, probably like 115 to 125 a square foot just for building and not the land or anything else.
Sorry, I think
saw 125 was average.
Yeah, those are something kind of decent, but definitely not hardwood or granite.
Of course.
Yeah.
You thinking that's including the lot also?
No,
Yeah, there's 1,000 ways to measure it. That's difficult.
I think you could get there.
like 115 probably. to
Yeah.
125.
Yeah, I think you can get there. Like, it makes sense for us because we don't have to pay ourselves as a contractor and we can make the money off the house. But we gotta get somebody to back it.
Yeah.
So somebody else has to have interest in it. I guess that goes back to what he's talking about with finance. We're working more and more to try to figure out how to use other people's money to get stuff done.
Gotcha. Yeah, and if you were having like a homeowner was doing it and you were building it for them, then that's probably like 150 a square foot. So I've noticed a lot of clients will say that too. They'll be like, well, I can, after I buy the land, have somebody build it for me. It's going to be way more than if I just get a home and renovate it, or
We're looking at custom built homes from an insurance perspective, and we figure this up every day, but a custom built home on demand, I'm thinking 110 if I'm laying out a bunch of homes in a subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm looking at somebody to come in and build, we use $200 a foot for decent construction. That's what the insurance companies are using. When I say decent, solid surface countertops and hardwood floors, a decent mixture. It's getting expensive.
Who was mentioning mobile home parks earlier, was it? Yeah, I went to something a couple months ago about the housing shortage, and something that was mentioned was by, I forgot his name, over at VHDA, about, that's what they're seeing as just buying a whole chunk of land and people buying prefab houses.
to put on lots.
Exactly, like that's the way, instead of stick built,
They have really nice homes now too.
Yeah, and so it seems like that prefab has sort of tried to move into the area where stick built just isn't.
Prefab as modular versus mobile homes are not really prefab because foundation or.
Mixture of both.
Okay, because I know the city, I believe, what's here is here as far as trailer park goes, grandfathered in, but no more can be added.
It's
And
difficult
for
to
the
add.
counties, unless it's grandfathered in, an existing trailer park, now it's like per trailer, it has to be like a half-acre lot or more,
Yeah.
depending on,
My parents had about their
When did they do that?
it was,
This is like 10 years ago or
Yeah.
more, because when they developed the newer section of their property, it was huge lots now. Yeah,
they can't,
a lot of expense.
but yeah.
That could change, and that's where a real developer comes in and creates value, is rezoning. That's where I've got always my biggest bang for the buck. Right now, affordable housing is a hot button item for city council and the board of supervisors. Everybody's screaming for it. There's no homes to buy. We can't get homes to people that need them, the working class. So it's a hot button political item, and I think you can start to, some of these, probably not trailer parks, but the pre-manufactured homes are, I think you can get those in. We had a conversation about trailer parks the other night. I love the idea of them. It's not sexy. Nobody wants to say they own a trailer park. So it takes out a lot of competition in my mind. Because they just don't want to be invested in it. And so I typically see higher returns on trailer parks. A lot of low risk on them. They are a maintenance nightmare. You could hire a management company, but something has to happen. The population's growing. It's getting more and more difficult to, that's why you see so many apartment buildings going up. It's getting more and more difficult to afford a home. Until the government comes around and does what they did before, and we go through the same cycle and loosen up the lending standards for residential, we're gonna have to find alternative means to build cheaper. And so I think you might start to see these come back.
Yeah, I've heard other people that I know in the business have said they're seeing signs of like some of the counties that have really shied away from allowing more to be easily added on to their parks, or bringing the zonings back to allow. But it's still the material cost. I think it's way too much to develop. That's why you don't see those too, though.
Yeah. I have no idea what time it is. I didn't set my watch.
7:30.
I don't know if you want me to run through more, or you're tired, or I can, whatever. Any questions? I've got tons of projects I've done. If you want to know a certain specific or a part of it, I can share any stories I've got. It's up to you.
Yeah, the more you got, the better.
Okay. Or let's go through examples. Does anybody have a project they're considering? And let's bounce ideas off around here.
Well, I guess how are you also finding some of your projects? Because the last time we talked, you were talking about some of the properties you were coming across, and I haven't been able to see anything like that. So sometimes, I don't know, different ways of deal flow, you know, could help out.
You're not gonna find anything on the MLS.
Nope.
See something that's not there. We've made it, where I've made good money is doing something with a piece of land that it doesn't look like it can be done. 865 was built, if you remember, it's this crazy steep hill. And I used to before I moved here, I lived in the islands. And so, I mean, it's all mountains down to the sea. So you figure out how to make difficult terrain work. So a little bit of that, my excavator, I don't know if you know Ira Biggs.
Yeah.
Ira's a good old boy from West Virginia, actually a business partner in a lot of development, crazy good excavator. He's from West Virginia, and you gotta work on hills and shit. So a lot of times those bad pieces of land that people won't develop, and it had a ton of rock, but I baked that into the cost. So hopefully that's one of your goals as a developer, see something that's not there. Otherwise everybody's doing it, and your margins are squeezed. That one we carved into the side of the hill and terraced down parking lot going down the back of that hill that nobody thought you could build on this 20% slope. We just cut it like you do in the islands, because that's what it is. Typically that wouldn't work, but nobody thought we could plop 300 apartments right next door to JMU in the middle of 2000. They were like, that land's gone. I'm like, no, it's not. We can work with that hill. James Madison Square, the Starbucks location, that back footer is 18 foot deep. That was another big slope. And I'm like, you can't do anything there. I'm like, yeah, you can't, just make lane. We're gonna put the footer back here, we're gonna run it up 18 feet, fill it full of fill, and now we got a building pad. You see things like that, that's where you can identify good stuff. Deals, high frequency banging on the phones and internet bidding on things. I was in Richmond today. I might bid on 6 properties next month. I don't have time to do the due diligence on all of them, and a lot of them are really low bids, and realtors are gonna hate me for saying this because it makes them work. But yeah, I throw out stupid bids, and every once in a while, I will get a hit that I hit that person on the right day that, like, yeah, I need to do that deal.
So like auction 10.
It's like cold calling.
Oh, you cold call people?
Yeah, so I put an intern on, like I said earlier, I focus on these tax incentivized programs. So I do an overlay of enterprise owned historical tax credits, real property grants, and see where there's 2 or 3 of them overlaying. We got 3 of them, like I'm really hot on that. Go drive around the neighborhood, what looks like it might be for sale. Those are things that I try to identify. Weird deals come to you.
Do you use like auction sites, or what about that for auctions?
Yeah, that's a good
Commercial
place.
stuff.
Yeah, I've got a buddy in town, and he's developed half of John Sala, who I think one of the smartest developers you will ever meet in town, and you will see him in, he does not look like a developer. Cut off jean shorts, raggedy t-shirt. He's the real deal. He's developed more property. Him and Barry Kelly, probably the 2 guys that have done the most downtown. He made a living. One of his fortunes that he made was when the houses were under bankruptcy, or the whole big foreclosure thing swept through. He was buying 40 to 50 homes a month. Never see him all over the East Coast. Just buying them online, submitting crazy deals. This is the power of numbers. Throw out 100 out there, 2 of that 100 people are gonna say, yeah, I need that money today. And so he'd buy them super cheap, never look at them, call a realtor in the area, give them a target price, not looking to hit maybe market price, but maybe in between. His thing was just cash flow, keep rolling them over. Get enough in one area, work out a deal with a realtor, hey, shave your points, a couple points here. Worked out deals on his insurance because now he had a bigger portfolio, so you get some scale. But that was, if you're looking for foreclosure and auctions, don't be scared to throw out low bids. You're gonna piss off a lot of sellers, but.
So you just have to Google real quick to see what a rough market price would be for it, so that way he knows he's really safe?
Dude, I'm talking about buying homes and subdivisions for 15 grand.
Oh.
There's no research on that. It's just, I'll send a check for 15 grand. Worst case, I'll bulldoze it over and I got a lot. You can't buy a lot for 15 grand with the tap fees paid for.
Yeah.
Some of these crappy places, by the time you pay for the stormwater, the tap fees, the grading of the land, it's cheaper. The Hardys in front of the food line, we were hired by a doctor to build an office, and he had to do it within 11 months. So we had to identify a piece of property, close on it, design it, and build it. And that's where a lot of our work comes through with this crazy stuff. Like, we gotta make this happen for tax reasons. So we ran through the analytics of it to find a lot in Harrisonburg, put in a sidewalk, put in the get the tap fees, grade it, get it to what I needed. I bought the Hardys, demolished the Hardys, and built where that was. That was a time-sensitive thing, but I was already grandfathered in on everything. Everything was already done. It's now reaching the point in the city of Harrisonburg, it's cheaper to buy a crappy old building, tear it down, and not have to go through stormwater management, not have to go through the ridiculous tap fees. That's where we finally are at a price point that it's, and that's when you start seeing the crappy old places torn down. It's just too expensive to develop a raw piece of land.
Like the old Long John Silver's up there, it's now the Hot Vines.
Yeah, that's just location. If you can get on 33, because there's nothing available on 33 East, but
yeah, it was a Long John Silver's for God knows how long. Just could barely even see the place, just torn up by bushes.
yeah, it goes back to what's your true cost of the land. If you've got a lot of that stuff already paid for, because that's a huge cost now. So it's not what you pay for the land, what it costs you to get the land to be built on. Anything else? I've been talking forever, it feels like. But it's worn out.
On these downtown buildings that you're looking at doing, you know, with the, getting the overlay of the different incentives, the tax, what are you looking to put in these things? I mean, and how are you figuring out, you know, are you going with, how are you determining whether or not you do 5 apartments of average size on the top floor, or if you're trying to get like 10 small apartments in there? Are you just running a bunch of analytics and figuring out what your best bang for the buck is, or do you have a rule of thumb you use?
I'm a big believer in math. Everything's a math equation. So I think that I've got college kids that do it because I'm not the technology literate. They can figure this shit out really fast. You can build a spreadsheet up. I'm big in Excel, so I could take the average 1-bedroom price. We get deep into it when I say do due diligence. I go to Krista and I'm like, all right, Krista, I need to know how many 1-bedroom apartments are available within a 3-mile radius down here. And I expect her to call every apartment building and find out what their occupancy level is, find out what their average rent is. And then the better I can make my data, the easier this math equation becomes. In Harrisonburg, you can't rent 1-bedrooms fast. I mean, you can't, 1-bedrooms are in crazy demand. For some reason, 2s and 3s, it's difficult to get. That's just speaking right now with what's on the market. But it's difficult to make a 1-bedroom work because you're paying for the HVAC. You're not splitting that HVAC up over 2 people. You're not splitting that kitchen up over 2 people in the laundry room. So if to price it correctly, really 1-bedrooms need to be a hell of a lot more than what they typically are. Or you can't split, you can't say, oh, I'll get 1,000 for a 1-bedroom and 750 for a 2-bedroom. You need a lot more because a lot of that base cost is, you can't split up twice. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We probably do that more on student housing because we go 1, 2s, 3s, or 4s.
So
That's where we start. We've got our base cost of a kitchen is 15 grand, the laundry room is another 2,500, the HVAC, look, we've got 30 grand into building an apartment that'll either serve 1 person or 4 people. The only extra cost for the other 3 people are the bedrooms.
Right. So what did you end up determining to do with the one downtown?
Harrisonburg?
Yes.
Okay, that's a whole nother situation. That one we're building Airbnb. Dude, it's ridiculous how well we've done on Airbnb. There is risk that it might go away or the hoops you gotta jump through, but I've done a couple of them in Richmond. I've done a bunch in Richmond, but 2 of them, the ones that I'm really buying are mixed use zonings. And downtown, it's, that building's mixed use. So Airbnb is the exact opposite. There's a ton of supply on the market for 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms. Every person that goes out of town for the weekend with a 1 bedroom apartment is putting out on Airbnb, so the supply is huge. We found our 3, 4 bedroom houses. I'm not sure, we were buying houses in downtown Richmond. We closed on one last week. We're anywhere from 220 to 260. We're getting roughly up to 300,000 invested into it. That's complete renovation, getting everything fixed. That's kind of our budget for a 3 or 4 bedroom house. We are getting, after cleaning fees and after what Airbnb takes, we're averaging about $44,000 to $45,000 a year in rent for a $250,000 house. I'm not kidding. It might get shut down at some point, but I try and buy the ones that are mixed use so it doesn't affect me. That'd actually be a good thing because it's probably just going to hit the residential zoning, and so that'll wipe out all the competition. And we build ours correctly. We have grab bars, handicap accessibility, exit signs. We go ahead and build it out almost like, but yeah, right now that's something I'm on is the Airbnb. And so that's what we're doing downtown. We're building a 3 bedroom Airbnb place. Not shitting you. There are, if you look on Airbnb for football weekends, graduation weekends, anything to do with JMU, a 3 to 4 bedroom house is $800 to $900 a night, minimum 2 or 3 night stays. If you've got a house downtown Harrisonburg, you can easily make $2,500 on a football weekend. It's ridiculous.
Are you, and you're self-managing these?
Yeah.
So you have somebody on staff that's lining people up and taking care of cleaning and everything?
Yep. Yeah, their maintenance, where I was going to subcontract everything, some of that stuff you'll find that you end up working for $8 an hour. All the shit that you put into this, subcontract a lot of that stuff out and free yourself up to do other things. I'm a big believer in subbing all that stuff out until you get to some scale where it makes sense to spread it out over a few properties. I see a lot of developers, they've got great ideas and they get a couple of rental properties and then manage them themselves. They have no time to go get another one because all they're doing is chasing rent around and keeping up with this yard. Sub that stuff out. It's going to cost you, but it's going to, your value of your time to go out and do another project's worth a lot more. Especially, there's 2 parts to this answer. I want to do a deal just to avoid the taxes. I see a lot of people do that. They'll buy a bad deal, which ends up costing them more in the long run. And they get in their mind, I've got to do this 1031, I got to do this 1031. If you're a seller, that's the person you want. Because that person is in a panic and they don't think rationally. They're like, I just got to get a deal done. Dude, I make my most money when somebody calls me up, I'm in a 1031, I got to buy something. I'm like, oh great, I got some for sale. So no, I would go ahead and pay the taxes, especially now while tax rates are low. The capital gains are really low right now. So depending upon the situation, if I didn't have another good place to put that money, I'd go ahead and take the tax hit now. They'd make a bad deal.
And then I was curious, when you were talking about your insurance guy when you first got your start, what made him think, did he share with you what made he thought Harrisonburg had that was going to boom, or?
He saw JMU poised for growth. That was the main driver. The I-81 corridor. He saw transportation, the logistics and moving goods, less retail, more warehousing, shipping like Walmart distribution center. He was the other guy. It's funny when I talk about mentors. I remember Bill and Neff. This was the same time period, early 2000. I shared this story with y'all. Some of these guys are brilliant. The people they can hook into. This was early 2000, 2001. Whenever I got that money to, and he was telling me, stop doing shopping centers, boy. Nobody's going shopping anymore. Everybody's going to order it on their fancy computer. And I'll be damned if 20 years later he wasn't on point that everything's retail is really suffering. And he's like, buy property around big infrastructure, rail lines, any transportation, interstate exits. There's some brilliant guys out there that I'm not one of them, but they can foresee different trends and things. A big trend everybody's trying to figure out and we're trying to grapple with is nobody's driving anymore. It's unbelievable. I can't, kids don't want their license. For student housing, we used to use a 1.1 to 1.2 parking ratio. So for every apartment door we had, we'd have to have 1.1 or 1.2 parking spaces. because they're gonna have guests, employees, blah, blah, blah. We're using 0.08 now. We're cutting it, that's what that's almost 33% cut in parking availability. Nobody drives, they Uber. It is really weird. And driverless cars are coming on fast. That's gonna have a lot of big impacts. Parking lot shrinks, now you got valuable real estate on an already graded piece of land. You don't need the parking. You can sell off a piece of your parking lot. You don't have to be on the exact corner. These are things that they say are coming. Starbucks always has to be on the corner, one turn in off of the main route. They say with driverless cars, it doesn't matter because you're not driving anymore. You're in your car reading your paper and you go to Starbucks. And you don't care if you take 2 or 3 turns because you don't even realize it. That's a trend everybody's like, holy shit, locations are gonna change because it's all about convenience of driving. Driving's changing. It's really weird.
Question, random question. Do you know what they're putting on Lacey B. King in Stan?
And where?
Lacey B. Kingway in Stan? It's a huge project.
No, I'm trying to think where that is.
Right off of 260, right off of Middlebrook, off of 262.
No, I don't know what that
Used
is.
to be called business, I forget what it used to be called. Name of the street, but it's a huge project on the street.
I think I know what you're talking about, but no, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the drive, I mean, I'm telling you, it's gonna change. You don't need the oil change places anymore because cars are gonna drive themselves to get an oil change in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. I'm not kidding you. These are the things that are being batted around and talked about. It's already coming out in Europe, driverless tractor trailers. We could wipe out a whole industry overnight. Imagine putting a piece of equipment on the road 24 hours a day making you money instead of paying labor. Things are gonna change. Whoever figures out how it affects real estate is the one that can cash in on that. I could ramble on forever, see on this.
Yeah, that was great. Any other questions?
I have one, something you talked about, mentors. One of my goals tonight was actually to see if you mentor me, so. See if you follow up on that.
Yeah, we'll work some of that. Maybe you can coach me in the weight room. We'll work out a trade. I think I got still, we'll get in touch.
All right, good deal.
Any others?
If anybody has any follow-up questions, I'm not always the quickest to respond, but Dain at hammondasset.com. I will try and get back to you if you have any questions. I'd love to help anybody out if I can.
You got any cars with you?
Yeah, I think I did. This one's my insurance card, but it still gets to me.